Good morning. Frances Shannon here, Acting Vice-Chancellor of the University of Canberra, talking with Michelle Grattan. Good morning, Michelle.
Hi, Frances.
Well, it's the last day before the election, some might say at last. What's the lie of the land as we await the result tomorrow?
As we go into this election day, I think that Malcolm Turnbull is favourite. He's considered favourite really by both sides of politics to win. However, I would add the caveat that it is a very confusing situation because the polls are so balanced, and they have been all through this campaign. Both sides have been on virtually level polling. And so it will depend a lot on how things go in the marginal seats, what sort of swings there are between states, and also the rise of the independent candidates and micro parties, which does have an effect and flow through with preferences. So it's an election that will, I think, throw up quite a few surprises.
Well, it'll be interesting. Both the two major leaders, Turnbull and Shorten, appeared both in the press club, and then they were interviewed on Four Corners, probably a slightly different interview than normal on Four Corners. Was anything new revealed by these media appearances, or were we listening to the same stories?
Basically, we were listening to the same messages that they've been pressing. Of course, in Malcolm Turnbull's case, the big plan that came out of the budget with a company tax cut and growth and jobs theme. On Shorten's part, it's pushing his agenda of investment in social policy, in health and education. His appearance at the press club was interesting in that the Brexit theme came through there, and the way that he interprets Brexit is that it was in part a reaction to the alienation, or a reflection of the alienation of voters, and that this comes when people are marginalised, and he argues that the Turnbull policies would have an effect of marginalising some people. So Malcolm Turnbull had been using Brexit to his advantage earlier. It was quite interesting to see Bill Shorten with a different take on it that fitted in with his agenda.
Well, Turnbull is certainly arguing the stability plank.
Yes, that's right, and he's saying in this uncertain period, stick with what you've got, stick with majority government. It's not just don't vote Labor, but it's don't vote for Greens, for independents, don't register a protest vote, because we don't know in the world what things are going to be like globally, what the economy is going to be like.
Turnbull and some of his ministers have been asked a lot of questions about the plebiscite on same-sex marriage this week, and how they might vote should the government be re-elected and so on. Is this becoming a dominant issue, or is it a minor issue?
It's not a dominant issue, but it is an issue that was a bit difficult for the Prime Minister this week. He has said that the Cabinet would have a free vote on the legislation that would implement same-sex marriage if the plebiscite were passed. Now, some people have said, well, that will give the Conservatives in the Liberal Party an opportunity to thwart the implementation, and Malcolm Turnbull says, no, that wouldn't happen, that there's nothing more certain than that the implementation would get through if there was a successful plebiscite. But nevertheless, this issue is going to be, if Malcolm Turnbull's re-elected, a very difficult one for him to manage. Not that point about implementation, but the campaign itself. He advocates a yes vote, but there will be strong voices among the Liberals who are saying vote no, and also, of course, there'll be a big no campaign from the anti-gay marriage lobby. And for Malcolm Turnbull to manage his party through that quite divisive period will be a big challenge. And that's one reason why it's important for him, if he's Prime Minister, not just to have a majority, but to have a substantial majority whereby the electorate has given him a strong mandate and therefore he will have more authority within his party.
So apart from then looking at the overall outcome about who ends up in the majority, or if anybody ends up in the majority, which seats will be interesting to watch tomorrow after the vote?
There are quite a few, but two that will be riveting will be firstly New England, where Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce is under attack from Tony Windsor, the independent who used to hold the seat, who of course supported the Gillard government. That's been a very rough and tumble campaign, especially towards the end, quite nasty really and quite personal. Of course, although Barnaby Joyce is considered likely to win, expected to win, if that expectation wasn't realised, then the Nationals would be in total chaos because there's no heir apparent. So that's a very important contest. Another interesting contest is in the South Australian seat of Mayo. And there you've got Jamie Briggs, who of course was forced to stand down a few months ago from the ministry because of an incident abroad involving a public servant. He is really on the ropes from the Nick Xenophon team, and Xenophon is of course polling so strongly in South Australia that they have at least a real chance in that seat, in some other seats too, but that will be a particularly interesting contest on the night. I think Jamie Briggs must be biting the fingernails today.
It will be. So next time we talk, Michelle, it'll all be done and dusted, so we'll be able to talk about the outcome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Francis.